Tell us why we should care about having environmentally sensitive products in our home.
Terry, a lot of this stuff, for many, many years, we have had products that were toxic. We had solvents a long, long time ago. And what happens through you have all the outdoor pollution. Then you have all the building products. Plus, then you have...
So let me stop you and translate that. We get spare the air alerts, and we all hear about the outside.
But you do it during Christmas time when everybody wants to use the fireplace.
Yeah,
and it's warm and cozy, and you guys shut us all down. No. Go ahead.
This is why it's a lot more exciting with David on the show. So we all know we have outdoor air quality, and obviously that gets into our show. Then you started to talk about building products, so that give us an example of where there are toxic chemicals sloughing off in our home.
Okay, for instance, if you walk into a new tract of homes, they won't be in the home, but they'll be in the offices. We talked about this last month. And it's because of Proposition 65, which was a good thing in California, but it does say that the building materials in these homes may cause cancer. Well, there's a lot of stuff that's going to cause cancer. And when you get into cleaning products, one of those things, they're getting better. And we'll get into green products a little bit later, and they say they're really good. Then they're getting better, and they're better than what they were in the 80s, okay? But for the most part, you want something that's low VOC, okay? Because asthma is out of control. That's why you guys are helping so many people. Asthma is out of control. Then you have pulmonary disorders, okay? And that's on the rise too. And it isn't going to go away. It ain't going to get any better simply because, I mean, we're doing our job here and we're doing our clean air, but everybody else around the world are polluting. And we do get their stuff also. So as much as we're cleaning.
Yeah, it's important just to act like I'm a professor. 7% of our air pollution now comes from China, outdoor air pollution. So like you say, it's real significant.
Very conservative. Because there's a lot of the countries
Yeah.
that also don't have the emissions and stuff reduction that we do. But getting into cleaning chemicals, it's really smart just to have low VOC. Some people think...
VOC is what?
Volatile organic compounds. But one of the things you think clean smells. I was talking to a lady today, and she says, well, you know, I really like the smell of Pine Sol. And I said, yeah, but it ruined your limestone floors.
And it may be ruining your lungs. I mean, I grew up thinking that products with chlorine in them smelled good because we knew they were clean. Well, all that chlorine that got into the air might not be the best thing for my lungs.
And as you told me many, many years ago, I mean, we're not as strong a race as we used to be 70 years ago, or well, 80 years ago before the Industrial Revolution. But the cleaning products, when you're in an area that you cannot ventilate, and you're using cleaning products, whether it be even a scent. Now, sometimes scents are that bad, but the thing is you inhale them, you have your alveoli, which actually filters them, which is really good. I mean, it's a wonderful thing that we have for our lungs. But one of the things is that in the cleaning industry, and especially in stone, they're still using acetones. And it's a standard practice to use acetone for stone because it's a good cleaner. I wish they would find alternatives for it, but a lot of the stuff is solvents. The sealers are solvents. And a lot of people, they all have granite, so they're all sealing their stone. They're not wearing gloves, and they're putting the sealer on, they're putting the cleaners on, and not only does it hurt them because it has the VOCs and their solvents, but if they get it on their hands, it gets in their bloodstream. Well, that kind of really works into your chromosomes over time and genetically can hinder you. So that's one of the things. One of the things that the EPA did actually was that they took the solvents from gallons to quarts. And they did that so that, I really don't know why they did it. It's kind of silly. If you're going to use the product, you're going to use the product. But still solvents, even though water-based is a water-based solvent, it seals your stone really, really nice. Everybody's got stone. Everybody's got grout. They want to seal it. And then they want to clean it, but you got to clean it with the right stuff. And most of the stuff in the grocery store is not good for stone. So my company, ESP, is Environmentally Safe Products and Procedures. So you want my customers to get the right products, and we send them cleaning instructions all the time so that they do the right procedures. Because you can have the best products in the world, but if somebody doesn't know how to use it, I mean, TV says to spray and wipe, okay, and it doesn't always work that way. TV also says on the carpet, they shoot the stream and say, see it disappear? Well, it went into the padding, and that's why your stuff reattracts. You know, they can clean it and go, yeah, a spot comes back. That's because it's in your padding.
So I got to interrupt you here. We're not here to plug any individual company or product, but feel free to respond to this. It is imperative that people listening to the show, and I can't smile during this part, think about the implications of the cleaners that they're using in their home, whether they're cleaning rugs or they're cleaning tile. Anytime you bring somebody into your living space, there's often a better alternative.
Terry, Windex has chelines in it. It's a solvent.
Yeah.
Not only does it etch polished marble, but it has VOCs.
Yeah.
And again,
just
VOCs being
to emphasize,
volatile organic compound.
No, but
there's
let
a
me
reason for that.
Take it a step further, which is volatile organic compounds we normally think of like from driving cars, oil products. But they're one of the things that causes severe lung damage.
It does, because Terry, when you have outdoor air pollution, you have indoor air pollution, okay? And then you have all the cleaning products and you remain, you can't ventilate. You know, it's like an island, let's say like Hawaii or Guam, okay? They're in the middle of the ocean. So if they pollute, whoosh, it just goes away. They always have clean air. Somebody else gets it, but for the most part, they always have clean air. When you're in a home, and that's why they say that, you know, in the house is considerably worse, almost 10 times worse, the air quality, because you don't have circulation.
And
so
it's
what
a
you
little
have
hard, obviously.
and
you
people
know,
are still using Comet, and when that stuff powders and it shake it into the, look folks, Comet and all those powder abrasives, they will ruin the porcelain, take off the porcelain eventually, and that's why some of you go, I have to get a new tub. Gee, why is it all rough? It's because of the powdered cleaners. And then now Comet has got a thing, it's called, you know, new non-scratch formula. I was looking at them like, glad you can make it to the party. I mean, they've been ruining tubs and sinks for years.
So indoor air quality, just to keep our audience informed on that, it may be 100 degrees on the day that this program airs. You're not going to open the windows to clean out all those pollutants and lose all of the air conditioning. Similarly, during the winter, obviously people are not going to flush out those pollutants when it's 40 degrees
sit
outside.
there. And those pollutants also, those VOCs, can get into your air ducts, your HVAC. And the thing is, once it gets into the air duct and it's moist, you have a great chance of eventually, you know, keep it clean, of creating biological contaminants. So you have all this stuff compounded into the house. But a lot of people, they buy their stuff at the store, they think it's good, and now everybody's into green products. And by the way, Terry, a lot of the green products etch polished marble.
So what do you think a green product is?
Green product. Like lavender's green product, there's a lot of stuff that's citrus. But here's the problem with the citrus.
But the overall goal of a green product is to be less polluting or less damaging than the conventional one they're using. If you were talking about a powdered cleaner, you might find one that has less damage.
The green products are good. Most of them you can't use on a polished marble. You shouldn't use on a stone because you'll strip off the sealer. But we're going in the right direction. I mean, they're better than diluted floor stripper we used to do in the 80s, and they'd call it environmental. But some of the stuff's okay, it's getting better. But a lot of people are going green, Terry, because it's about money. It's a buzzword. Their heart's not really in it. I mean, you have somebody like Clorox, and Clorox has got these green works, and you know.
Well, and we're not going to talk about a specific product, but I do want to emphasize that there's not much of anybody to look over the shoulders, these companies who claim to be a green product. So, you know, I would count on an organization who's certified or said that you trust, rather than advertising claims.
Okay, but the problem, Terry, with this whole thing, look, folks, green is simply this. If you want to be green, you give them some money. And if you're close, they go, you're green.
Ah, cynic if I ever heard one.
Oh, Terry, come on. My Better Bio stuff, right? They say you need to be green. I'm like, okay, I'll be green if any of your products can be USDA, 80% bio-based. Well, that's where everything's going to go eventually anyway. But for the most part, green really is about this. You get green certified, you get green this, and I see all the green labels. I get calls all the time about natural stone. Oh, I used a green product. And they etch the heck out of their stone. It's more buzz. I mean, we're going in the right direction, but it is a lot about money, and everybody's going to it because you see people going, I got a green business. You know what? You and I were talking about green businesses before it was even popular. We were talking about the garages that were green, that were clean, and all the people that were doing the recycling and all that kind of stuff. It goes way back. We've been doing a lot, and we're getting better, but it could be a lot better.
So let's talk a little bit. I don't really dare ask you this question because you'll have no trouble taking another half hour when we've only got 10 minutes left. But is all mold bad?
Yes.
All mold is bad?
There's no good mold, Terry.
Penicillin.
We stumbled on
But
that.
not in your body, right?
We stumbled on that.
Yeah.
The reason why mold is bad is because it can manifest so quickly. Okay? One of the things about mold that people don't know. Look, folks, I'm going to give it to you straight. Mold doesn't like moving air. No one's going to tell you that. If you get mold in your house, open the windows and create a vortex. Pull in with the fan, push out with the fan. Mold does not like moving air, so that the spores don't have time to set up. The other thing is that mold grows its fastest rate at 4 o'clock in the morning when it's most damp. So it can come back out, it can start manifesting itself and grow, and then when it gets hot, it goes back into dormancy. And it can go dormancy for millions of years. All you need to do is have the right temperatures, a little moisture, a little this, a little that, boom, and you're back in business again. And it is bad. Now, when you talk about caulking in a shower, okay, and silicone, I mean, caulking and silicone are moisture resistant, but they're not waterproof. So, of course, grout is good. Epoxy grout's even better. But one of the things people do a lot in their showers is they put the caulking in. And then when the caulking dries, it shrinks and allows the water, the moisture, to get into the substrate behind the wall of the shower. We do a lot. We have to get all the moisture out and let it dry out. But because mold can manifest itself and keep growing and growing and growing, yes, it is bad. And here's the thing. If you have asthma, you can be toast. You can know why. Terry, I've had more mold poisoning than you could ever imagine. I've been sick for weeks and months because I went into a house doing inspections back in the 80s in Los Angeles. The house was on a water table. I walked in for 10 minutes. I was sicker than a dog. I had to go out and get a full face respirator. Okay? And the guy when he says, or people will say, gee, I feel a lot better when I got outside of the house. Well, duh. Hello, McFly. It's obvious that you have pollutants in there and you need to deal with them.
I mean, it's bad enough that it's not recent in the last 5 years, but 10 years or so ago, the county actually lost 2 buildings to mold, that it was so bad.
So the question is, why did that happen? See, when I look at something, Terry, I don't do the fix. I always tell people, why did it happen? Let's find the problem. So if they lost 2 buildings to mold...
And I just want to interrupt because this is so important. You can get somebody to come in and it'll just fix it, and then the problem comes back next time. I think it's important to figure out first.
You would be surprised how many people who are certified mold that don't know what they're doing. And I've seen a lot of them in my years, Terry. I've seen a lot of these restoration companies, okay, that do flood damage, these big companies. They don't understand the beast. They don't even, if you were to say, what is mold? How does mold happen? They'd look at you like a deer with headlights. They know how to suck up water. They know how to moisture meter, but they don't have a clue about the beast. And I call it a beast because it can be deadly. There was an inspector in LA, okay, I think it was in the mid 80s. He was doing inspection, crawled underneath the house, never came out. He died. Why?
Wow.
Because the spores overtook the oxygen and somebody else went in. They made it out safely. The firemen had to come in with oxygen to pull the dead body out. It's real serious stuff, Terry. You don't mess with it. You have to have respect for it and understand it. Even though the county lost a couple of buildings, I'd like to find out more of why they lost the buildings, who was doing it, and what their actual recommendations were, because abatement is to remove. And a lot of these people who are doing this, some really know their stuff like
Let's skip names and just
Right. But
go
what
on.
I'm saying is there's a lot of guys, there's a few guys that know, and a lot of people that don't know. When it comes to mold, and they say the word mold, king, it's about a lot of money. And a lot of the times it's overcharged.
Well, you're already answering my next question, but let's back off. So I discover I've got mold in my house somehow. What should I do?
Well, if you got mold in your house, it really, there's a lot of variables. Where is it? How much of it? Do you get a headache? Because when you smell mold, you come into your house and you smell mold, you're only going to smell it for about maybe 15 to 30 seconds. Then you're not going to smell it anymore, but that's when it gets into your membranes. It's the spores.
Yeah.
So you want to move the air to keep the spores from setting up. Now the question is, where is it? On the wall. I'll tell you, Terry, a lot of times people will hire me when they move into a house to do an inspection, and they have their inspector, which is really a general contractor making sure that the house stands, and they check a lot of things out, and that's good. Sometimes people will hire me to come in, and I'll do a sweep with a light, and I can see mold and fungus through paint. So if somebody decides to paint over it, and there was
And
a
that's
roof
some
leak,
sort of special light you have?
it's a black light, Terry.
Yeah.
Remember in the 60s when we had our black lights with our posters from the
No,
film?
I
and
never
stuff?
did any of that. It was too straight.
Yeah. Black light is really a good thing. You can go to the Home Depot and buy it. Buy a 4-footer, do a sweep on the wall. It's not only good for finding pet stains, it's really good for finding mold. So if you had mold and it was painted over, you will find it. You can find it under vinyl tile. If it's heavy enough fungus, you will find it. It glows. It's like a nice purple. So there are things you can do yourselves to find this stuff out. But where is it? You know, people don't know enough about it, and then somebody comes in and goes, well, this is going to be about $30,000, when truthfully it may be only about $2,000.
So in that same vein, what's a false positive and what's it have to do with a mold test?
Well, one of the problems with the mold test, Terry, is a lot of times when it happens, it actually will happen when it rains, okay? So when it happens when it rains, and then you call your hygienist up, and the hygienist says, oh yeah, okay, well, I'm pretty busy right now, I'll get there in a couple days. Well, hey, the sun's back out, okay? And then they do a reading, and we say, yeah, you know, well, we'll do an airborne reading, and we'll get something. That is such a crock. And it's a crock, Terry, because if you want to find out what the counterspores were and how bad it was, you need to reproduce or have it on that day. Now, they're getting a lot of calls and stuff, but they're not Johnny on the spot. If you
Well, especially if they're busy. It's like
if they are. And folks, I got to tell you, if you get something, get somebody over that day. If you're going to do an airbound air count, or you're going to do a petri dish, okay, do it on that day, because as soon as Mr. Sun comes out and dries everything out, it goes back into dormancy, and you're not going to have nearly the reading. You say, well, it really wasn't that bad, you know, and the husband and wife and the kids are all snapping at each other because that's what mold does. It's like formaldehyde. So that's one of the false positives that they can get. But just locate it, find out where it is, because it's kind of an overblown thing, but it's not that hard to deal with.
Well, one of the things that you talked about on the last show, and anybody that's interested in the subject, I would suggest you go to createtvsj.org, because we had 3 shows with David talking about similar topics last month. So one of the things that you emphasize is there are new disinfectants that are plant-based instead of chemical, meaning making it from oil or something
Right,
similar.
and this is where the technology gets better. We're not so much in an end of, we're getting to the point where we're starting to put plant-based in. It is an EPA registered disinfectant. By the way, folks, you out there, if you want to know if it's a disinfectant or it's a sanitizer, look at the back of the bottle. It'll have an EPA REG. That is an EPA registered number. They'll have at least a couple of them. Then you know it's a registered disinfectant, and it works. If there isn't on there, it's a buzzword, and it doesn't really do what it says it can do. You can wash your hands and do the same thing that a lot of these sanitizers do. In fact, University of California, Berkeley actually did a study on all this antibacterial and found it wasn't any better than regular soap.
Yeah, and I really want to emphasize that because the antibacterials create superbugs. You really do not want to use those things unless it's absolutely required by a doctor. Like you say, washing your hands is just as effective.
Yeah.
You know, I go out of my way every time I have a meal, after a meal, every time I, not to gross my audience out, use the bathroom. Wash your hands with soap and you're as clean as you're going to get.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. Now, going back to the plant-based products, a lot of people are starting to do plant-based. That's cool because you're getting into the whole bio thing. If everything ends up into the bio end as far as cleaning goes, we're going definitely in the right direction. And that's where we're starting to go. We're going plant-based. I mean, Santa Cruz is trying to do that stuff decades ago. Okay, and now they're finally catching on. But it's a good thing. You still have your EPA rating. It is a real true disinfectant, but they're taking less stuff out and putting some better stuff in. So we are going in the right direction. And Crocrobium, for instance, does that. One of the few plant-based, but a lot of people are going there too with that, and that's very important.
So we've got about a minute and a half left. Concromium has a mold control. I've never had mold in my house at all. How do I know when I need a mold control, maybe as a preventative?
You'll see black on your walls. Sometimes.
Well, that means mold is there.
Yeah,
and
sometimes even having your dresser too close to your wall will create a mold.
Yeah,
okay?
It's a wet opportunity with not enough air movement.
Crocrobium's real good. I actually sell it in Home Depot now. And I got to tell you something. It's low VOC. It doesn't hurt stone. It rocks. And it works. And as it dries is when it really starts to work. Don't make fun of my rock joke.
No, I'm making, yeah, I was reacting to that. And I was also trying to figure out with about 45 seconds left how I was going to get you to condense everything else that you want to say into no more than 2 paragraphs.
It's a tough one. I want to keep talking.
Well, I'll have you back in a few months. You're easily the most entertaining guest that ever comes on the show.
The biggest thing, Terry, is that the people, you got to start asking questions and don't believe everything you hear. Because most of the stuff you see on TV, it's not right. They're selling you something. Just, you know, it isn't always the truth. Find out. We have the power of the search engines now. Not all that is true, but a lot of times you can find out stuff. You can go to YouTube. You can find out a lot of things.
One of the things I like is
people are putting it up, and you're going to get a lot more help on it.
Is the MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. I looked it up on a substance the other day. At least it's reliable.
Most of the people don't even know what material safety data sheets are. But when you buy a product, let's say you go to a big box store and you want an MSDS sheet, a lot of times you can go right online to the product people and you can download the MSDS sheets.
And that's it. We'll see you next week. Thank you.